Welcome back to Growing Your Soul. What I want to talk to you about today is worship, specifically. Not just keeping Sabbath as a general thing, but actually going to church on a Sunday morning as a spiritual discipline. Now, the fact is, everybody looks to something or someone to give our lives meaning. What we love and adore and focus on forms us into the people that we become. Now, some people pour all their time and energy into getting and keeping power or approval or success or control or independence or happiness. It's the desire for these things that gets them up in the morning and keeps them going throughout the day, and they may not consider their obsession with these kind of things to be worship, acts of worship, but they are. Secularists, agnostics, even atheists give their lives to something, and what we give our lives to is what we worship. Now, Christians say we worship the God who revealed himself to us in Jesus Christ. And of course, we all know that worship of this God means more than just going to church on Sunday morning, as your book points out on pages 44 to 46. But one of the things that worship should mean, at least, is going to church every Sunday. It means more than that, but it should mean that in the very least. Doesn't matter what worship style you prefer. Some Christians like contemporary worship. Some Christians like liturgical worship. Some Christians prefer charismatic worship. Doesn't matter one single bit. What does matter, however, is that you go to worship every week. That you worship with other Christians every week. If you want God to be transforming you into the person that he wants you to be, you should be going to church somewhere every Sunday. Jesus said, where 2 or 3 of you come together in my name, namely worship, I'm there with you. There I am in the midst of you. And this is in Matthew chapter 18, verse 20. Come to worship, and I'm there too. So, since Jesus has promised to be present at worship in a special way, shouldn't those of us who want to put him first in our lives practice the spiritual discipline of going to church every week to worship him? Shouldn't we do that? Now, maybe your faith is such that you made the decision to go to church every Sunday, no matter what. It's Sunday, I should go to church. And if you are, great. But a lot of people wake up Sunday morning and they look out the window, and if it's raining or if it's snowing or if it's bitterly cold or terribly hot, they say, no church for me today. I also should point out that these people look out the window, and if it's beautiful out, they say the same thing, no church for me today, because I can work in the garden, or I can skip church and go fishing. What a peculiar idea it is that Christians would debate and choose every week whether to go to church or not. We don't debate about whether or not to get dressed. We don't debate about whether or not to brush our teeth. We don't debate about whether or not to stay married or remain a parent. If you're serious about growing your soul, you go to church if it's Sunday. It's a spiritual discipline. You discipline yourself to go to church because it's Sunday. Yes, indeed. God is in the garden. God is out on the lake. God is on the golf course. God is everywhere. God is everywhere. Just like sunlight comes in every room of your house. This is not an original illustration, by the way. This is an illustration that I got somewhere. But God is everywhere, just like sunlight comes in every room of your house. But at worship with other Christians, God is present in a special, concentrated way, like a laser beam, because he has promised to be there. And it's good for your soul to go to church. God is present at church in a special way. Plus, in the sacrament of Holy Communion, we take God between our teeth, as Pastor William Lazarus always used to say. God himself comes as food for your soul. God gives himself to us to feed our soul through this holy sacrament, which is only available in the middle of the worshiping community. So if you're into practicing spiritual discipline of any kind, you should be sure to go to church if it's Sunday, even when it's inconvenient and you don't want to go. More particularly, especially when it's inconvenient and you don't want to go. Especially when it's raining or snowing or beautiful and you really don't want to go because it's inconvenient or because you can come up with other plans. You should go. Going to church because it's Sunday is the best and most basic spiritual discipline of all. Try it for a year. Start this Sunday. Practice really paying attention to the day's lessons and to the words of the hymns. When each lesson ends, ask yourself, what was the point of the lesson that I just heard? After you finish singing each of the hymns, ask yourself, what was the point of the words that I just sang? This way you can make sure that you are actually engaging in worship, not just going through the motions. On the drive home, do this again. Ask yourself, what were the lessons that I heard read today? What were the hymns that I sang today? And see, this is to make sure that you are engaging your heart and your mind in worship. See if you can remember what they are. And if you can't, try harder to remember what they are next week. And try doing this every week for a year. See how your life changes. Thanks for practicing these spiritual disciplines, and I'll see you soon at Growing Your Soul.